Recording, okay. Start broadcast. Here we go.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everybody and welcome to the National Hispanic and Latino ATTC's webinar, Recovery Support Services for Hispanics and Latinos. Today's webinar will be presented by Donna Mitrovic, Chair of the Board of Faces and Voices of Recovery, and also a member of the National Hispanic and Latino ATTC. I will tell you more about her soon. During today's webinar, all participants will be muted. The audio will be streamed through the computer. So please make sure that your computer speakers are turned on and up to hear today's presentation. Now I'm going to review a few housekeeping items with everyone. If you notice that your viewer does not fit your screen, you can expand it by clicking the expand button located at the top right corner indicated by the red arrow. Now you'll see that your viewer is expanded to fit the entire screen. Also, you can collapse the GoToWebinar toolbar on the right of your screen by clicking on the small red arrow on the left of the toolbar. And then click the arrow again to expand the toolbar again, and it will expand. As I said, for today's webinar, all participants will be muted as we move through the presentation. If you have any questions for our presenter, we ask that you use the chat box on the toolbar. Simply type your question and hit send. We can pause for our presenter to address questions at an appropriate time during today's presentation and again at the conclusion. A recording of today's webinar along with the PowerPoint slides will be available at www.attcnetwork.org at regional centers approximately 1 week from today. You can also find recordings from all of our past webinars. One NADAC, one NBCC, and one ICRC continuing education credit is available to those who attend today's live event. If you're interested in obtaining CUs from these organizations, please email us at hispanic@attcnetwork.org. Today's webinar is sponsored by the National Hispanic and Latino ATTC. As of October 1st of 2012, the network has been restructured and now consists of 10 regional ATTCs, 4 national focus areas ATTCs, along with the network coordinating office. As you can see by this map, the ATTC network regions were realigned to better fit the current HHS regions. And the 4 national focus areas ATTCs are listed on the left. Today's webinar is the 6th in a series that the National Hispanic and Latino ATTC is offering. The ATTC network is funded by SAMHSA. SAMHSA strives to reduce the impact of substance abuse and mental illness on America's communities through its programs and services, and demonstrates that behavioral health is essential to health, prevention works, treatment is effective, and people can recover from mental and substance use disorders. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit more about our presenter. Donna Mitrovic was recently hired as the Director of Consumer Affairs for Substance Use Disorders at Optum Health Behavioral Solutions. Her role in Consumer Affairs is to assist with developing and implementing recovery support services to ensure individuals achieve and sustain long-term recovery. Donna is in long-term recovery and a family member supporting addiction recovery. Prior to this position, she was the Chief Operating Officer of the RACE project in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, leading the nationally recognized buprenorphine coordinator program, supporting individuals with opioid dependence in medication-assisted recovery. She served as the Director of Education and Advocacy at the Johnson Institute in Washington, D.C., organizing educational programs and events to promote the power of recovery. Donna holds a Master of Human Services from Lincoln University, is the current chair of the board of Faces and Voices of Recovery, and was a mentor for the Developing Leadership in Substance Abuse program for the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation.
Hi, everyone. Before we get started, we would like to launch a couple of poll questions so we can get to know our audience today. So I'm just going to go ahead and start with the first question, and that is, do you currently serve Hispanic and Latino populations with substance use disorders? Please select yes or no. All right, it seems like 85% of our attendees today voted yes. I'm going to close that poll question now. Okay, the second question. Are you planning to serve Hispanic and Latino populations with substance use disorders in the next 6 months? Please select yes or no. All right, a vast majority voted yes, 94%. Very good. The third question. Which field of work do you represent? There's a couple options for you. All right, most of our attendees are within the substance abuse field. Thank you all for responding. Next question is, what is your current professional role? All right, 46, 38% are counselors, and another 32% are case managers. So we have a decent picture of our audience today. Now the last question. What type of setting do you currently work in? All right, we got, it seems like the majority of the audience works within the substance abuse treatment outpatient. All right, I'm going to close the poll now. All right, thank you everyone for responding to these poll questions. Now we're going to turn over the presentation to our presenter today, Donna Mitrovic. Please welcome her.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I want to thank you for taking part in learning a little bit about recovery support services and how we can better serve Hispanic and Latino populations. I had a great introduction, but what I wanted to do is just talk a little bit as my role in Faces and Voices of Recovery as the board chair. As you learned, I am a woman in long-term recovery and a member of those in recovery. And, you know, the work that I do really draws from the opportunity that I had as a woman in early recovery, you know, when I had the supports that were out there to help me be successful in long-term recovery. And so that's really what my passion draws on, and I just wanted to expand on that just a little bit, because I firmly believe that, you know, treatment is an essential part to a person getting well, but recovery support is integral in people being successful for, you know, their entire journey. So what I wanted to talk about today, and the objectives of this presentation, is to give a better perspective on what recovery supports are for substance use disorders, What is the difference between 12-step support? We all know or probably have heard of AANA. What are the differences between those types of mutual aid groups and recovery support services that are available in the community? What role does culture play in one's own personal recovery? And then some engagement tools that we might be able to use for the population seeking or in addiction recovery. So as part of the work that we all do, and especially being involved with Faces and Voices and here with the ATTC, we look at a lot of the work that is happening at SAMHSA, the federal level. And I just wanted to put up here the working definition of recovery, which is a process of change through which individuals improve their health and wellness, live a self-directed life, and strive to reach their full potential. And this definition actually came about as a result of a bunch of folks coming together in Washington to, ensure that we had input from the community, the recovery community, as to what they believed recovery was all about. And there was a piece of this. There was a lot of conversation and, a lot of going back and forth, but it was actually completed in March of 2012 once we decided that abstinence also was an important part of that. So according to SAMHSA, the four major dimensions that support a life in recovery are health, home, purpose, and community. And when we look at the health piece of it, that's the abstention from the use of alcohol, illicit drugs, and non-prescribed medications if one has an addiction problem. It also includes making informed, healthy choices that support both a person's physical and emotional well-being. Home is pretty self-explanatory. Everybody wants a stable and safe place to live. As far as their purpose goes, people want to be a part of society and to have purpose. And ways in which this can happen is through a job, school, volunteering, family caretaking, creative endeavors. And also people want to be independent. They want to have the income and the resources available to participate in society. Individuals in recovery from substance use disorders typically move towards these goals in a short amount of time. Those with the ability to become employed will try to do so pretty quickly. And then, of course, community. Everyone wants to be part of a community, and support groups provide a good haven for those in substance use disorder recovery, which is safe as far as being alcohol and drug-free. The guiding principles of recovery, and as you see, I have culture highlighted there. And the first one there is hope. And, recovery is real. It provides the essential and motivating message of a better future. People can and do overcome challenges, barriers, and obstacles and still remain in recovery. It really is internalized and can be fostered by peers, families, providers, allies, and it really is the catalyst for the recovery process. I know for me, when I first got into recovery, being able to see someone that I knew had used drugs in the past and had turned their life around, that provided me with the hope that I knew I could do that as well. The second guiding principle is person-driven. Many in the addiction recovery field believe that people cannot make decisions on their own. Individuals are provided the opportunity to take part in their services and support decisions, are empowered and can initiate recovery building on their own strengths and gain or regain control of their lives. And basically what I'm saying is that, individuals should be able to say or make a decision as to what they believe is the best treatment option, recovery option, because there are many different pathways to recovery, and not any one is the right one for any one individual. And that's the third guiding principle of recovery, that there are many pathways. Persons can choose what works best for them. It could be 12-step involvement, it could be medication-assisted recovery, or it could be faith-based recovery. Recovery really is nonlinear, and it's characterized by continual growth and improved functioning. There can be setbacks, and it's essential to foster resilience for persons with substance use disorders. The abstinence from the use of alcohol, illicit drugs, and non-prescribed medications is essential for those with a substance use disorder. The fourth guiding principle is holistic. We want to look at all facets of a person's life, meaning mind, body, spirit, and their community. There's an array of services and supports that are available and should be integrated and coordinated to ensure a person's path to recovery. The fifth thing we look at is peers and allies. The mutual support and mutual aid groups are really important resources for a person's recovery. Through helping others and giving back to the community, one helps oneself. Professionals can play a part, but the vital sense of belonging and supportive relationships are essential to the growth of the individual in recovery. The next thing that's the guiding principle is the relationships, and that involves others that support your recovery, offer hope and encouragement, and help people to change. Developing relationships that are healthy and fulfilling will help individuals move from harmful and unsafe to their life in recovery. And as you all know, as people that are involved in the treatment field, that one of the things that we encourage people to do is to change people, places, and things so they're not around the things that influence them to use drugs again. Culturally based and influence, the person's recovery needs to be representative of their values, traditions, and beliefs in their journey. Services should also be culturally grounded, sensitive, and personalized to the individual's unique cultural needs. And that is really important when we're looking at the Hispanic and Latino populations. We want to be able to address trauma. It's often a precursor to or associated with substance use, and services and systems should be trauma-informed to foster safety. Now, we can't always treat the trauma that folks may be experiencing, but we want to make sure that we have the experience to be informed and that people are safe when they come to see us. Strengths and responsibilities. The individuals, families, and communities play an important role in the recovery process. People in recovery have the right to speak about their strengths, needs, wants, desires, and aspirations. And some of the work that we do with the recovery support services are just that. We focus on individual strengths and look at the barriers or the challenges and how that individual feels they need to address those issues in order to be successful. And then last guiding principle is recovery is based on respect. People affected by substance use disorders and or mental health problems have the right to no discrimination. Recovery takes courage, especially with the stigma that's associated with these disorders. The discriminatory practices inhibit a person's recovery, since regaining belief in oneself is one of the most important things for wellness. So I just wanted to, I'm sure all of you know this, but a definition of cultural competence is a set of congruent behaviors, attitudes, and policies that come together in a system, agency, or among professionals and enable that system, agency, or those professionals to work effectively in cross-cultural situations. And, for me, when I read that definition, I thought, I had worked in an agency where when we first started out, we were not able to find recovery specialists to work with individuals that spoke Spanish or, came from the same culture. But the important part of that is that the agency or the system is able to work effectively in a cross-cultural situation. So, you
Um, Don, are you there? We lost you for a moment, and I don't know if you still have your mic up and running. Don, we still see your screen, but unfortunately we can't hear you. I don't know if your mic went down or something happened to the microphone, or perhaps. Okay, folks. Let's see. We're trying to reconnect the audio here. We're just trying to make some adjustments here, so please uh, uh, just give us a moment here. We know that we can see the screen. We're just trying to reconnect with audio. So just give us a moment, folks. All right, we should have Donna back online in just a minute, folks. Um, all right, Donna, I think we can hear you. We heard you for a moment, and then it went off again. So let's just wait a couple more minutes. Donna, if we're seeing your screen here, and apparently, it seems like you're trying to get the audio connected through the phone, if I'm not mistaken. Um, I don't know if you want to continue to try to do that, or perhaps try the built-in function of GoToWebinar. So let's just I appreciate your patience, folks. We're just trying to get back online with the audio. So I'll ask you to please stand by for just a couple more minutes before we actually continue with the webinar.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Let's try that. Where did I leave off at? Okay, so it was that one. Okay.
All right, folks, we're back on track. So we're just going to move the presentation to where we left it. So we will go from there. Thank you very much for your patience, folks.
Can you hear me okay?
We hear you loud and clear, Donna.
Okay, sorry about that. Sorry about that, folks. I don't know what happened, but let me move on. I was talking about this slide, substance use treatment among Hispanics, and I believe most of you have probably seen this information. I think it's just important to note the piece from the National Survey on Drug Use and Health Report from 10/25/2012, which showed that Hispanics who needed substance use treatment were less likely than non to having received treatment at a specialized facility, 9% versus 10.5%. Among Hispanics needing but not receiving treatment, only 5.6% perceived a need for treatment. And then combined 2003 to 2011 data indicated that Hispanics 12 or older were more likely to have needed substance use treatment in the past year. Okay. So recovery supports. Addiction recovery supports have been available for many, many years, and the notion of providing these services in conjunction with or as an adjunct to professional treatment services has really just become the norm. Research has been done to suggest that the social support framework of peer-to-peer recovery, as well as holistic community-based support services, enhance treatment outcomes. And Tom McClellan did that research back in 1998. So recovery supports distinguish the singular goal towards which all efforts are directed, and recovery involves these critical elements. First being sobriety, abstinence from alcohol and unprescribed drugs or illicit drugs. Two, the improvement in global health. So we look at the physical, emotional, relational, and life meaning and purpose of a person. And three, citizenship. People want to have positive participation and contribute to community life. So in our world, the addiction recovery support world, it involves the provision of 4 different types of services: informational, emotional, instrumental, and or affiliational. So looking at these 4 dimensions for substance use disorders, I just wanted to give a little bit of background on what could be involved as far as with the emotional. It's to demonstrate the empathy, caring, concern, to bolster a person's self-esteem and confidence. And some of the services that may be provided through recovery support would be peer mentoring or maybe peer-led support groups. Next one we look at is informational. And what that is to share the knowledge and information and or provide the life or vocational skills training. And some examples of that could be parenting classes, job readiness training, wellness seminar. At the position that I worked at prior to coming to Optum, I worked at a recovery community organization called the RAISE Project, and we would do a lot of life skills training for folks that were in early recovery just to help them get back on track with their parenting skills, maybe something as simple as, you know, how to balance a checkbook. We would have bankers come in and provide training on that. So that would be categorized as informational recovery support. The third one is instrumental, and what that does is provide concrete assistance to help others accomplish tasks. And so those would be services such as child care. A lot of people in early recovery have issues with having babysitters. So as a recovery community organization or maybe a community-based organization providing recovery support, you may want to look at child care. The other issue is transportation. I know within the organization I had worked for, we transported folks to their doctor's appointments when they had medical appointments. So because in the area that I live in, it was very rural. We didn't have public transportation like you would in a big city. So that was very important to do to help people in supporting their recovery. And then we would, you could also help people access community health and social services. And then the last one is affiliational, and what that does is facilitates contact with other people to promote learning of social and recreational skills, create a community, and acquire a sense of belonging. And those would be services that could be a recovery community center, a sports league that may be all folks in recovery, alcohol and drug-free socialization opportunities, and I think people in early recovery are especially happy to have services like this because they don't know how to have fun without using drugs and alcohol. So it is really important to be able to provide those types of supports for people. So I just wanted to give you a history of the new recovery supports, and it really came about as a need for a broader culture of recovery. When I first got clean back in 1985, pretty much the only thing that I had ever heard about was 12 steps, so AA, NA, those kinds of things. A little bit of faith-based, but not so much looking into medication-assisted recovery or anything like that. So, you know, this new era of recovery supports really came out of a need to look at recovery across all venues. In the 1990s, there was a grassroots recovery community organization grant that came out of SAMHSA. There were 19 groups that were chosen, and some were very specific. So there were some that were Native Americans, some LGBTQ, some were women, some were forensic. But it was really to look at building a voice for the anonymous recovery community. We always hear stories about the horror of addiction, and what we really wanted to do was to be able to provide a positive spin on recovery, to show the world or the country that people do recover. So, you know, basically what we wanted to do was focus on the positive aspect of recovery, and that people do live their lives in recovery without a whole lot of fanfare, a whole lot of chaos. And the recovery support services were decided that it was a good investment in lieu of advocacy for people in recovery. And that was really when this was born, the recovery community organizations were born, and Faces and Voices of Recovery. And when we founded Faces and Voices of Recovery, that was back in 2011 as a result of a national summit out in St. Paul. The goals that were included as we started to talk about what looked important for us as a community of recovery was that, you know, we wanted the political and cultural mobilization of communities of recovery, recovery-focused public and professional education, advocacy of pro-recovery laws and social policy, advocacy for a recovery refocus of addiction treatment, promotion of peer-based recovery support services, support for international, national, state, and local recovery celebrations, and last but not least, the promotion of a recovery research agenda. So as with many things in life, we're seeing a paradigm shift from treating substance use disorder as an acute approach to treating it as the chronic disorder it is. There are many studies done about the brain change through NIDA and other entities to show that this chronic disorder has a successful treatment rate as many other chronic diseases. Chronic disease has a behavioral aspect, and when people are shoved against the wall, they will make changes. This is the same focus for substance use disorder. When a person suffers enough of consequences or is not feeling well, and there is a need to change, that will happen. So the recovery management approach grew out of the need to change, and it shares a lot with the term disease management. The selection of the term recovery management emphasizes a focus on the experiences, needs, and aspirations of the individual or the family rather than managing the person's condition. The primary goal of such management is increased quality of life for the individual and the family. Cost reductions achieved by this model are desired and anticipated, and recovery management is concerned with the effective utilization of services and reduction of expensive acute interventions such as hospitalization and the use of emergency services. So when we look at recovery and wellness, we want to focus from a crisis-oriented, acute approach to a person-directed recovery and management approach. So looking at cultural considerations when we talk about recovery support services, one of the things that I was drawn from was looking at putting the slideshow together was that spirituality is really an essential element for Hispanic and Latinos, and it's often recognized in 12-step support meetings. When you go to an AA meeting, the main focus is on spirituality and God is your higher power. So that is a good place to be able to engage people in recovery supports. You also want to think about the religious and spiritual beliefs of the person, the redefinition of one's own culture, healing therapies that can be adjuncts or alternatives to medicine and psychiatry, the integration of therapeutic approaches into traditional healing practices such as spirit healers or folk healers, and in the need to find a cultural pathway of long-term recovery maintenance. So what are the advantages of engagement to recovery supports? Recovery supports are important to initiate a program of wellness for persons with substance use disorders. Some people have very low recovery capital and are in need of support as they begin a life of recovery. And when I talk about low recovery capital, it means that they don't have a lot of support out in the community. Once they leave the treatment venue, once they leave residential treatment, or they are outside of their program, they don't have those supports that are available to some others that have a high recovery capital. So there's a body of research on the value and effectiveness of peer supports, especially with other chronic health conditions such as diabetes, cancer, obesity, HIV/AIDS, and mental illness. And we want to help people initiate and maintain recovery and enhance their quality of life by helping to improve their health and wellness, building upon their recovery capital, and that's both the internal and the external supports to reinforce the recovery. Help individuals play an active role in managing their recovery, improve health and recovery outcomes in diverse communities, reduce relapse rates, lift barriers and increases access to medical and other supportive services, and then reduce the onset, duration, and intensity of symptoms associated with several severe addiction in adults and at-risk children and adolescents. And what that means is, you know, if people have the availability of recovery supports, if there may be a relapse that happens within their early recovery or even later recovery, if they have the recovery support systems in place, they will have that early intervention to get back into the services that they need. If we engage people to begin the process on the path to recovery, there are numerous areas of their life that will be effective. One of the things about people that recover from substance use disorders is the fact that they move on to live their life. meaning they leave the system of dependence into a life of independence. This happens differently individually, but most move on to a normal life in the community. Although recovering individuals have life problems, as does the general population, the consequences that went with their drug and alcohol dependence improves dramatically. These are the things that will be impacted during the recovery planning process. There will be different needs for different individuals, and the more pressing the need, that would actually be the first thing that they would want to work on in their recovery process. So of course, the major components of the recovery planning process would be for folks to look at their substance use. Maybe they want to live and be financially independent. They want to get a new job. They want to go back to school. They want to look at their relationships and social supports, their medical health, what they do for leisure time and recreation, helping them to move away from the legal system and institutions, and then their mental awareness and spirituality. So the recovery-oriented system of care has really been, there's been a big move towards that over the past several years. And for those of you that have not heard of that term, in the new healthcare environment, it's a coordinated network of community-based services and supports that's person-centered and builds on the strengths and resiliencies of individuals, families, and communities to achieve abstinence and improved health, wellness, and quality of life for those with or at risk of alcohol and drug problems. So, as I said earlier, we had in the past looked at addiction as an acute condition, and we've now moved towards looking at it as a chronic condition, which embraces the recovery-oriented system of care. So what are peer supports, and what do they do to help folks within the communities? My experience has been with recovery coaching that once a person is released either from treatment or another institution, they may not have the resources they need to succeed. And working with individuals in recovery is really revolved around the opportunities that others have had in the past on their path to recovery. So we want to make sure that people are able to obtain employment, live in a safe and conducive environment, have the support of family and friends, go back to school, and that all builds on a person's self-esteem to help them in their journey of recovery. And like I said, back in 1985 when I got clean, it was kind of fashionable to be in recovery, and I've seen the pendulum kind of shift from being fashionable to be into recovery to criminalizing those people that live an addiction issue. And I think now we're really looking at supporting people and understanding that this is a chronic condition and we need to support people so that if they do relapse, they can move on to early intervention. So these are just some ways that recovery supports help communities. It helps to initiate, stabilize, and sustain a person's recovery. They're non-professional and non-clinical. They're very distinct from mutual aid supports, meaning it's not the same thing as an AA or an NA sponsor. It may be a peer working with somebody as a coach or as a mentor, but it really is helping people access services within the community or things that may support their recovery other than working the steps of a 12-step program. And then, these recovery supports are usually provided by people that have lived experience. So it's kind of like been there, done that, and people have a better affinity to connect with somebody once they're out in the community with somebody who has been in the same situation as them. So these are just some examples where peer recovery support services are available. They're available in recovery community organizations. Some faith-based organizations provide these services. You may see emergency room departments have peer coaches, recovery houses or Oxford houses, recovery ministries, and some states that have the access to recovery grants also provide funding for peer support services. And these can be paid positions or they may be volunteer positions. Types of services that are available are the coaches. There are also some communities that are providing telephonic supports. There are some services that can be, some programs that actually facilitate educational and support groups within their treatment center facilitated by peers, and maybe that's an alumni of their organization. There are folks that are providing services as peer navigators, peer-operated recovery residences, recovery community centers, and care coordination. So a peer coach would have three overarching service roles, and that would be to serve as a guide and a mentor, and to connect people to instrumental recovery support services, which could include housing, employment, and both professional and non-professional services in the community, and also serve as a liaison for formal and informal community supports. So a peer recovery coach would highlight his or her own lived experience. Family members could also qualify as peers, and peer coaches should have specific knowledge and skills that enable them to develop peer practice in ways that help and do not harm, and are authentic process and path of recovery as determined by the person that is served. I earlier talked a little bit about the services that are available, that can be available, and this is just some more examples: employment services, housing, child care, mentoring, coaching, family, marriage, education, spiritual and faith-based support, or self-help and support groups. So cultural considerations in providing recovery support. I talked with a friend of mine, Ben Bass, who runs the El Paso Alliance in El Paso, Texas. And when he was putting together his recovery support services in that community, these are some of the things that he said were really important for him to look at. So he wanted to make sure that each one of his, depending, I guess, upon your community in which you work, you want to make sure every service and peer is available both in Spanish and English. You want to take into consideration all of the cultural institutions around you. So you can look at the local health centers and other community-based programs that are available. He also said it was important for him to do a national search on Latino and or Hispanic programs that provide services, recovery support services, and use those programs if they're out there and available to you. Get involved with movements within the culture, and then make sure to identify and listen to the creators of culture in every neighborhood, district, and city. And these are the people that may be key in the neighborhood communities are recognized as the elders in the community. And, you know, for him, he said these are the things that helped him as he was developing his peer recovery support services, and he does that in the context of a recovery community center. So monitoring and support, chronic disease requires chronic cures. I thought that was quite an interesting quote from 1828. And communities of color need stable recovery support institutions that can move beyond brief experiments in recovery initiation towards prolonged recovery maintenance. And this comes from William White, who has written quite a bit about recovery support services and the history of the recovery advocacy movement. And he says in offering recovery management models, we have advantages to an environmental perspective on the cause of problems. We have a broader target of intervention. We have hope-based model of service engagement and the inclusion of cultural healers and institutions. We expand our menu of culturally grounded recovery supports. We extend our time frame for recovery support, so it's not just a day, a week, it's for as long as the person needs that. And then a partnership-based service relationship, so it's working one-on-one with the person, and it really is a partnership other than a hierarchical relationship. And then a culturally nuanced approach to research and evaluation. So those are some of the ways we can look at the programs or supports that we have available to people. And ways to support recovery within your community is maybe to engage with a religious leader. Look at long-term recovering individuals that are within your community, maybe alumni of your organization who can help others that are in a situation just like them, and then partner with other organizations or individuals to help build recovery support services. So in conclusion, peer recovery support services are being recognized in a number of health and behavioral health environments. Prevention, intervention, treatment, and recovery support services for substance use problems are highly effective and yield impressive savings to society. Outcomes for substance use treatment are as effective his outcomes for other chronic disease, such as hypertension, diabetes, and asthma. And, you know, I think that's really important when we talk about, when we come across folks that don't believe that people can get better. You know, we can talk about other chronic disease and relate the same for substance use, that there are individuals, there are over 23 million Americans in the United States that are in recovery, and you know, our hope is that many more can find that as well. So, and thank you very much. Here is a website for Faces and Voices of Recovery. ManyFacesOneVoice.org is a new initiative that we just started, highlighting the new film, The Anonymous People. If you have the opportunity to see that movie, please do so. It's just unbelievable how there are folks that are interviewed about their own recovery process and recovery support services that are available in their community. And it's getting all across the country. So please, if you have an opportunity, check it out. And then facesandvoicesofrecovery.org. Thank you very much, and I appreciate your time. Again, sorry for the audio, and I will turn it back.
Thank you so much, Donna, for that great presentation. We do have some questions here. I'm just going to read them for you so you can elaborate on them. The first question goes like this. In your experience, how has the chronic disease model shift been accepted?
Well, in my experience over the past, since I've been involved in recovery advocacy since about 1998, I think that we have really moved towards that chronic disease model. And I mean, not only within our community, meaning treatment, drug and alcohol, substance use disorder community, but also in the medical community and the general population. There's still a lot of work to be done, but I think that people understand, the American people understand that this is not something that is kind of like, you know, a broken arm. We just don't put a cast on it and expect people to get better. So it is an ongoing process for folks that are in recovery.
All right. I have another one here. Do you think a consumer needs to be from the same ethnic background to provide a better service?
Well, you know, I think
I'm sorry,
that
it's a counselor. Sorry, Donna.
A counselor. I believe that a person should be very knowledgeable about a person's culture. So if you're working with somebody that is, you know, Hispanic and you are not, I believe you should have a good understanding of the culture. I don't necessarily think, I mean, there may not be opportunity for that to happen, but I think there are good counselors that are out there that do have the training and the ability of cultural competence to be able to help somebody sustain their recovery. Did that answer your question? Yeah.
I think so. I have I have another. I think we will get back to questions once we're done with the webinar through our website, since we're almost out of time. So I would like to thank Donna for her presentation. It was very interesting for everyone here. Let me tell you folks that an electronic copy of today's webinar and audio will be available on our website. And your feedback is very important for us. And this concludes today's webinar. I would like to thank you once again, our presenter, and please look out for our calendar of events so you can learn about future webinars. As you leave today's webinar, you will be directed to complete a brief survey about your experience today. Your feedback, once again, is very important to us, and we appreciate you taking the time to tell us what you thought of today's webinar. So, gracias. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.